All right.
Here the fuck we are.
Yeah. Are you ready? You're ready?
Oh, I'm rolling.
Oh, we're fucking rolling. All right.
Ready to roll. Ready to rock.
Welcome to another episode of Anyways. Today we are talking about episode 9 of season 2. We are coming to you from the future where we may have mislaid a few files and we may redo 1 or 2 episodes because we need to. I'm Ben.
I'm Chad.
And today in this episode, William Bullock planted some seeds, talked to his stepdad, and then he got ran over by a horse.
Kind of. He got weird slow motion. He kicked in the head.
Yeah. Did you not like how he was slow motion? He was trampled.
I mean, it's a little weird, but I don't think it's like bad.
It has this nice overhead shot which sums it up everything. It's just this incredible sequence which starts with.
But it fades out on that shot.
Yeah. You don't like that?
No. I like it's better than the weird quick fade outs that they do at times.
Yeah. There's like it starts with like Martha Bullock is cutting, or maybe it's true. They're cutting Sophia's hot dog or wiener into like parts and having her count the parts because everyone is obsessed with math in the bank because they've been teaching it to William, and then it just keeps building just through the use of music and this showing all these different people in these different locations.
Mm-hmm.
and there's probably the most scariest thing in the buildup is Steve the drunk is just hanging out with William while Tom Nuttall bicycles around to pick him up.
He's just trying to be a good guy.
And he gives him a nickel and says, "This is our secret."
Yeah.
And it's just like very unnerving with the music. It comes across as if, what is Steve the drunk going to do to William Bullock?
Right. But I think the real thing is like if they knew that he was hanging around with Steve the drunk, they'd be like, oh,
yeah, get the fuck away.
Get the fuck away. But he's like genuinely trying to be like decent right in that moment.
It seems,
I think.
It seems so, yeah.
And this is an episode where I think a lot of like kind of minor stuff happens to it, and it seems like things are starting to like maybe turn around in some way, and then this is kind of like, no, the end of the episode is just like, let's just put a hatchet right into that.
Yeah, you're right, like, because it's like Martha and Alma get like the better of their kind of angry sensibilities and admirably like, okay, we're both love the same person, but let's work it out.
Yeah.
And it's just like they're immediately punished with having one of their children run over.
Yeah.
And then, one of my favorite things, one of the hardest things to watch on this time I watched it was Tom Nuttall, owner of the Number 10 Saloon. He goes at lunchtime to Bullock's hardware store to say, well, what that last shooting in my place,
right,
what was that about with that brother that killed that other brother? And he says he takes it to care. It's almost like he's laying out his tragic flaw as his pride over his establishment and his ridiculous belief that people won't get shot there because he's like, he doesn't even want to do like proper fire safety, but he's just like, I have this shoebox and people get shot in it, and I feel like attached to that. Like it's like my place.
And it feels like it's his fault, or he takes that weight upon his shoulders, and it's like really unfortunate. Every time he gets just like an inkling of like happiness, it's just like taken away from him.
Well, the one good thing was that he had that bicycle ride last episode, and he's like, he wants to recreate that victory. So he's like, hey kid, you really love my velocipede. Let's do it again, and I'll make all these puns. And he's just like the happiest we've seen him. And he has this long kind of mustache thing, and he looks like a wolf, and his head shakes, and he's just so excited about it. And of course, immediately crushed.
Yeah. It's the story of Tom Nuttall in a nutshell.
In a nutshell. All right. Well, this episode also has the story of Mose Manuel, which we were introduced to, I think, last episode. And he's Pruitt Taylor of Vince, who is he's killed his brother to make this to make $200,000.
Right.
And even like the basic line of questioning, like Bullock and Charlie Utter come to visit him at the Bell Union.
Fuck yourself.
And he's like, and don't act entitled.
Don't act entitled to fucking answers.
But he's like, Pruitt Taylor Vince has a problem with his eyes, a condition where his eyes will naturally jitter or move back and forth.
But is great in this character. I mean, like, it works so well because he's just, it looks like he has so much like pain and regret at all times in his eyes specifically.
He killed his brother and immediately is just like, oh shit, I killed my brother.
Right. And then now he like tries to not leave the room. He doesn't want to leave the room, and Sai is just like, you know, obviously he can't fucking gamble sitting up in his fucking room. I'm not going to send him up $5,000 more fucking dollars. Okay, get him down here, get him to fucking gamble, and that's his real life daughter.
Yes, that is Powers Booth's real life daughter, Paris Booth, who is playing Tess.
Yeah,
and they have yet another series of awkward scenes together
where he's like, "Go fuck this guy for me."
Yeah.
Now rub your face into his junk through his pants.
Yeah.
I want you to have a mouthful of his penis through his pants in your mouth.
Yeah.
While he's playing cards.
Yeah.
And then he's like, you know, it sounds like she's got a mouthful right there. And he's like, you could produce the same sound by putting your tongue against your cheek.
Yeah.
I don't know if she's got a mouthful.
Well, you know, in this viewing, I thought maybe Tess is really supposed to be Sai's daughter, because that would be understandable as a brothel owner, that he would have people working for him, and he would maybe have sex with one of his employees, and they would have a child, and then the result would be that child would then eventually, as we know his MO is to, just like Al, to kidnap people and when they're young and raise them to be in the orphanage, to be in his brothel.
It's not a bad secret backstory for them if they might have been playing.
But once you know that they are related, you can't help but see his face and her face.
Yeah. Oh, sure. Yeah.
And it makes those scenes so strange. But they're really good scenes. I really love the scene where Powers Booth is saying, he's berating her, as his only modes are berating and making mockery of people.
Yeah.
But he's like, come down among the games of chance. And he says it several times.
The
games of chance.
Yeah.
And he has this wonderful baritone voice, and it's just he's saying basically, you know, these games are all rigged.
Yeah,
and the
exactly.
games of being arrested or not being arrested, and the games of playing poker in my establishment, it's all fixed.
Right, which comes to a head later when Mose is finally downstairs, and like I was saying, has his penis inside of Tess's mouth through his pants somehow.
Yeah.
And is playing poker or something.
Yeah.
And then basically gets pissed off because he keeps losing.
Well, he's like you said, he's trying to cover his shame over having murdered his brother for $200,000.
Right.
In gambling and sex.
Yeah.
And it just doesn't work.
No.
And he just keeps losing.
And so he's finally like, you're fucking cheating me. And of course it's fucking Leon. So he probably is fucking cheating him. And, I
mean, the whole place is designed to cheat everyone who walks in.
Sure. But so he's probably rightfully pissed off, but you're not going to get your fucking money back. That's not how gambling works. And Mose knows that. Oh. And I think this is like maybe his chance, it's like suicide by cop. It's like suicide by Tolliver.
Yeah. I mean, another thing that I want to say from the history, and I think I may say this later in the series, which we won't talk about future in the Deadwood series, but Mose Manuel is an historical character, and the claim he gave up in real life is the Homestake Mine, which was the largest gold claim in North America. And he lost, like they call it Troy $1 million or Troy. There's this strange phrase, and it's a little bit hard to tell how much it was worth, but it produced millions upon millions of dollars. I think at least $20 to $40 million, and it stopped. It gave out in 2002, I think. And so Mose Manuel, if you know that historical fact, and his real brother, I've never seen something that indicated that he actually killed his real brother. He had another brother, and his name was Fred or something. But anyway, Mose Manuel was a real guy, and he really did sell to the Hearst Corporation, and it's probably one of the dumbest moves. I mean, it probably was understandable.
Yeah.
But he gave up probably literally the richest gold claim in North America, and here he's doing that and killing his brother for nothing.
Right.
So he basically gave away his brother to no end.
Yeah.
I really love the scene where he's trying to eat his toast, and they just ask him these simple questions, and it's like
any normal investigation. They're not even like necessarily saying you killed your brother. It's just like these are questions that anyone would ask when they're trying to figure out.
Where is your brother's corpse?
Yeah, like we're just trying to figure things out.
Yeah. His body is buried in a private burial ground by his own fucking private instructions.
Inside of a pig.
Yes, inside of a pig.
Being excreted right now.
And fed to everyone. But there's another thing about that scene which is really lovely, which is Charlie Utter's indignation at question. I mean, he has a nice little line where he says, Mose Manuel, don't worry about him. He'll be judge and every fucking other member of the court on himself as we all will be.
Right.
So he's implying that everyone has a tragic fall and fucks themselves up eventually.
Right.
And Mose Manuel will come through karma to no good, as he immediately does.
Right. It's all just about amalgamation of fucking capital.
Yeah, which is really great. And then Francis Wolcott, urbane serial killer, is like, you've read Hume, you've read Smith, you've read Marx, and of course this incenses Charlie because he doesn't know any of that.
Yeah, he's like, I don't know what the fuck you talking about.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's great because Charlie gets so mad he goes out with Bullock to a place that's selling beans and corn. Yeah, and he's talking about how Wolcott bought Wild Bill Hickok's last letter, but then he's just screaming, and Bullock is restraining him, and they're inside this guy's stand where he sells beans and corn.
He like bumps into him and like not official camp business.
Yeah, and he's like to excuse that he immediately buys some of the beans or corn. Just after he says, with money can buy these bastards anything they want.
Yeah,
he's just like, I'll just take over this person's shop. Here's 5 cents.
And then he takes the shit first and like casually slips it into his pocket while he's talking, and then it's almost like, oh yeah, I got to pay for it. I forgot. Yeah. And then he pulls the money.
So
out.
Like even as Wolcott is like a super high level compared to Utter, Utter is at a super high level compared to the bean and corns guy.
Yeah,
and he's just like taking over his store and just like fuck that guy. I mean, he's very sweet, and the guy in the store is very sweet.
The guy's just like, oh yeah, sure, fine, whatever.
Very understanding.
Yeah.
But and it's a reference to I actually can't find the newspaper article. He says that he picked up the phrase amalgamation and capital from a newspaper article,
in a magazine
that was talking about Wild Bill. And Wild Bill famously, there's a guy named George Ward Nichols who wrote for Harper's Magazine, which is still a magazine, but it was in circulation also then. And he wrote an article about Wild Bill Hickok after meeting him by chance and writing this, and it was a kind of a tall tale, got much criticism, but it popularized Wild Bill Hickok and led to his fame, which this series posits led also to his death, and probably did. And so, Charlie Utter doesn't understand Marx. He doesn't understand Adam Smith.
Yeah.
But he is correct in saying that Wolcott is able to overrule like the norms of the society,
right,
just by having the money to control how that society is run. And
I mean, Deadwood is like rife with all of this. I mean, it's like I mean, it is all about the fact that the people who control all of the capital can dictate to the people underneath them what they're going to do. Those people have no say underneath Al, underneath Tolliver. It's like those people that shoot Mose, maybe they're not bad guys, but they're being paid to do the thing.
Yeah.
And so they shoot this guy. And I guess Mose deserves it, but I don't know. He doesn't really, I don't know.
I mean, Mose...
He was put into a bad situation because of Wolcott wanting to get that mine from him.
He did murder his brother in cold blood.
No, he did. But when you're offered the golden ticket to get out of your shitty situation in which you have no money and you're just like scraping by, and he obviously was not like somebody who was working in that fucking claim.
Well, no, we saw him covered in dirt. He had like this really cool. I haven't
seen the episode in a minute.
He had like a rabbit from Alice in Wonderland type get up, but he was covered in dirt. And you remarked how you said somebody like carefully layered the dirt.
Oh, that's right.
Too carefully.
Yeah.
But no, he's a little bit. He probably wasn't working the claim. He just was adjacent. He was near the claim.
Yeah, but I mean, there's no way he was pulling out enough from that to. Because Hearst and Wolcott and all them have these resources, they can then extract the $40 million out of the fucking claim.
Yeah.
Whereas two brothers can't fucking do that.
That's true.
They're gonna
Yeah, and what you're saying about the cappers
Yeah.
that Cy also references when Charlie Utter challenges him to fight, he's like, "You'll better have all your gunmen ready, your cappers," and,
Right.
and he's just like, "Yeah, I'll have them." Like Cy just sees no
he's
contradiction.
He's like, yeah, I've got 5 and I got 5 behind them.
Yeah, it's like he doesn't understand
You
the
want to do
idea.
this inside or outside?
He doesn't understand that it's not a fair fight. He's like, "Yeah, my men will shoot you, whatever."
Yeah. But he doesn't care.
Yeah.
I mean, he doesn't give a shit at all. Again, it's he's flaunting the fact that he has like unlimited resources compared to even the cops.
Yeah.
The cops have like basically it's just two dudes. One owns a fucking postal service that happens to have a jail in the back of it. And the other guy just lives in town and is good at shooting people.
Yeah, and
they don't
they're-
have any fucking resources.
And they're like, "We want to be a little bit more respectful, so we'll investigate some of these murders."
Right.
The ones that were with the allied with the people that were not allied with.
But there's no like actual stipulation that they have to do any of this. If they didn't do any of it, everybody in any amount of power would be like, "I don't give a shit. I'm fine with us."
Which is true to modern life, even. That,
Yeah.
that, there's corruption in government and police, and we learn, with each, no matter where you go in human history, there's corruption that just is turned a blind eye to because of the nature of relationships between, attorneys general and police departments and, governments and everywhere.
Yeah.
But in regards to the cappers that Cy Tolliver uses to shoot people in the Bell Union and
Yeah.
enforce things, you mentioned how like maybe they're not bad guys. I mean, and clearly you think they would be like, well, maybe I shouldn't be shooting random people to death.
Yeah.
But he did have a gun.
He did have a gun. He did pull a gun out.
And we've had very sympathetic portrayals of Bell Union employees. Like Joni was a Bell Union employee, Eddie Sawyer is a Bell Union employee, and there was like those people were really good characters.
The bartender.
The bartender Jack, and they're all like, not evil people, but they
Right.
work. And as you said, the money compels them to do things that they would see just like, well, there's a character who we haven't met yet who says, "I'm just doing my job," and that is an aspect of.
But and Joni ends up rejecting the money and striking it out on her own because she's basically just tired of swallowing her pride and everything else to work for a man who's like murderous and has like kidnapped her and like has destroyed her entire life and constantly tries to like rope her back into his weird, I don't even know, his
weird den of iniquity.
Yeah,
he's obsessed with her.
Yes, and it's but she finally rejects the money and strikes out on her own, even though she's like kind of fucked now.
Yeah. And
because somebody who has a fuckload of money has taken everything away from her, and there were no consequences for anything, and now she's just left with a big empty brothel.
Yeah.
It's a game called a brothel. There's nobody there. So, I mean, it's just a big empty fucking, building.
Well, in this episode, she has Jane now.
She does have Jane now.
And it's really charming how it builds on. Jane came over to her place because Charlie told her to, and she was barely able to stand and talk. But because she talked to her and could barely give any sympathy or comfort, could barely speak because she's going through withdrawals.
Yeah.
But Jane seized on that, and like when she was just before she hit Francis Wolcott in the head with the Basil Hayden bourbon, she's like, "No, Jane is my friend."
Yeah.
And so now she's seized on that, and she's like, Jane is asleep against her door, and she's like, "You got to come in. It's cold. It's nippy on my twat. Just come inside, and we'll talk." And Jane just goes through this long thing about how she thought if she was murdered, she couldn't help her, and she was afraid to go into the place because it was dark, and she'd been scared like that since she was a child.
Yeah.
And it's
and once again, Charlie Otto's the matchmaker.
Yeah.
He puts them. It would have been great if he said something about she should have brought flowers to Joni.
Yeah. Well,
I feel like you should have brought flowers, Jane.
Yeah. Well, I believe my theory is that Charlie still has a crush on Joni.
I mean he does, but
Yeah.
he's trying to set her up with a friend.
But yeah, like he does an excellent job.
Friendly flowers.
Yeah, friendly flowers, but like
Same thing with Wild Bill and
Yeah.
and Montana.
Yeah. But like what I like is what's surprising, I think, is that Joni in our last episode was basically almost about ready to die to submit herself to Frances Wolcott and have her throat cut.
Yeah.
In this episode, she's super well put together and basically, has the foresight to like invite Jane into her life. And it's a moment where it's just a good moment and it's heartwarming. Another thing to talk about, which is interesting, is Charlie Utter and Jane's scene when she tells Charlie that she's moving into the Joni Stubbs place.
Yeah. He looked for her in all the saloons.
Yeah.
And he couldn't find her.
Yeah. Well, the new place opened up. But what's so great about that scene is that
Just already breaking my balls.
Yeah, they're insulting each other as they do.
Well, they always do.
Yeah.
That's their go-to. That's how they show affection for each other. Is that they talk about pissing in each other's ear and accusing one another of being basically a mom figure. Was what Charlie Utter almost gets accused of at times from Jane, like the pissing in the ear stuff, or he's constantly accusing her rightfully of being an alcoholic and that is like that you're gonna fucking die from it.
Yeah, but he has he's wounded by the idea that this Frances Wolcott character can buy Bill's letter and can kill these 3 prostitutes and suffer no punishment for it.
Yep.
And so it's shaking him to his core.
Yep.
So he has the reason to drop that facade and stop insulting her. And he's like, well, are you going to be okay? And I'm excited about you moving into it. And then she doesn't have the self-awareness to not keep insulting him. And so she's just confused. And then it's even stranger because he can't tell her that he's going to take Wild Bill's letter because he doesn't want to show her that it's Wild Bill's letter.
Oh, because she would just lose it.
Yeah. And he's right, but he just keeps being more befuddled and she just keeps insulting him as he keeps finding ways not to insult her.
But he brings up the thing about, I guess it's supposed to be a joke about the, maybe it's not though, about the fact if she's moving in there, then she must be becoming a prostitute. And then she's basically just like...
She's like, yeah, I'm Queen Hooker.
Well, yeah, but then she's also like, you're a real fucking keen observer of the human condition or whatever it is.
Yeah.
It's like, because like, that's one of Charlie Utter's like main flaws is he cannot read people at all.
Yeah.
He just threatens people.
Well, he gets... People have pointed this out. He's very awkward when he's talking to his friends.
Yeah.
And when he's very sure when he's threatening people who he thinks are detestable.
Yes. I mean, like, I don't think he can, like, read people in social situations, but he's definitely knows when someone's fucked up and they need to, like, face the fucking hammer of retribution from local law enforcement.
Yeah. But like, she made the same joke that he did. When Joni says, why don't you move into a place? She says, I get top fucking dollar.
Yeah.
And so like, it's more that she's testy and picking on him, but also like he also just wants to know more about, these are his 2 like friends.
Right.
Joni and Jane are his friends.
Right. And now they're friends.
And but, he's not able, it's like he's talking to a child.
Right.
And he's not able to get any information about, he's leaving.
Yeah.
Like, we're not going to, in true Deadwood fashion, I'd venture to guess that we're not going to see him for a little while because he's heading out of town.
But because of the nature of their relationship, and like, I have these relationships with certain people too, where it's like, you can't have like an honest, direct conversation about things.
Yeah.
You have to like layer it in sarcasm and like so many jokes that like, so at times you can't, you're not actually talking to each other.
Yeah. I mean, and it's... Jane sums it up with like, you're not only a pain in my balls, but you're also one of the strangest fucking persons I've ever met. Yeah. And he says, you'll get no argument with me on that score. Mm-hmm. And then it cuts down to him like stuffing Bill's letter or getting out the knapsack to go on his journey. Yeah. And it's not that Charlie's strange at all. It's just that I don't know.
He's being strange to her because he's not berating her. Yeah. He's trying to have an actual conversation with her, and she's not used to that.
And she's not able to give him the comfort that he would need.
No, because she can't do that. She can't have honest conversations with people. She has to like, it's either giant bravado, a lot of like crazy claims about how great she is and how she can kill people or whatever, or it's just her belittling you to the nth degree. That's it. Those are her 2 modes.
Yeah. Yeah. And
unless she's like dead drunk and like just blabbering. Yeah. And then she'll get, emotional.
I would say that, yeah, I agree totally with that. I think she's a very strange character, and I the real life Calamity Jane, she was in the theater a little bit, so she may have been self-aware, and she may have been a little bit less, it's hard to separate her fact from her fiction.
Sure.
She claimed she married Wild Bill eventually, and there's another person who claimed that she was Wild Bill and Calamity Jane's daughter, but then I think she disavowed that claim, and just all this stuff, and she got a lot of publicity and mileage out of claiming a relationship. So, but it's just the character in the series again. She comes in like a Coen Brothers character, and by the end of the series, you're just like, this is heartbreakingly real portrait of someone who suffered trauma when she was a child and throughout her life, and it's a comic performance, but it's just like you have so much
incredibly sad at the same time.
Yeah, you have so much more sympathy for her than like someone like Farnham, who is also
just a snake.
Well, he's also worthy of our sympathy in small little moments.
Yes, in moments.
But you have to kind of do the work, or William Sanderson does the work, or when the mice monologues do the work. But it's just like there's a little bit of Jane is afforded a lot of sympathy.
Yes, well, because
it works really well.
Because she tries to do the right thing, whereas Farnham does not.
Yeah,
that's the real issue. That's why Farnham doesn't garner as much sympathy, because
I think Farnham,
he's under the heel of Al, who will slit his throat if he doesn't do what he tells him to do. But Farnham also has those, and I feel like we have the same conversation about Farnham, but still, he has those inclinations to do bad things, and it's because of the situation that he's put in. So yes, there is some sympathy for him, but at the same time, when people keep doing it over and over and over,
one, he's portrayed as a fool, and two, he. I would say if he was defending himself, he would say he's incapable of not grasping after money at all times.
Yeah.
And so he just isn't capable. He doesn't have that thing. He yearns to rely on higher will, but he just can't.
He would love if Al, or probably even Cy, said, come across the street, work with me, fuck Leon. He would be like ecstatic if it was like, Johnny's gone, you're in now.
I think much like Cy Tolliver, Farnham he can't express love or affection. He can only express hatred or grasping after money.
Right.
But he longs to have affection.
Yeah.
And the few moments where he gets affection, Cy Tolliver doesn't, but when Farnham gets affection from Al, he's just so happy. He gets attention or affection. And
But a lot of the underling characters are like that. I mean, pretty much everybody at the gym is like that with Al. As soon as they're given any amount of praise or attention, they're just ecstatic that number one, that they're in the inner circle, if you will, and number two, that Al appreciates what they're doing. And even that happens sometimes, it seems, at the Bell Union with Tolliver and the two dummies, Leon and Constapleton, but they just don't. They fuck up so much that it's hard for them to get any praise. And praise from Cy, I don't think, is like, it's basically just not tearing you down.
Yeah.
If you're in on the take of what's happening, then that's like praise in that moment. It's like, oh, I'm in the inner circle.
Yeah. But Cy cannot communicate joy.
No. That's an emotion that he doesn't have that speed on his settings.
Well, let's talk about Henchman and Al in this episode. There's a scene early on where Merrick has put an article in the Pioneer which implies that because of Bullock's connection to a judge in Montana, Montana is interested in annexing South Dakota as per their plan, but he also said Washington, D.C., and as Al says, perhaps not France. And, so like he's laid it on too thick.
Yeah.
And Cy picks it up and talks about it when he sees Bullock. And this results in this dressing down of Merrick, who has problems as he's taken into the fold of Al's henchmen,
right?
Because he's too independent-minded, to understand and he doesn't need his effect. He has things out besides Al's affection, and so there's this moment in this episode where Al, he's so proud of his extra 100 copies and his article he's printed, and Al calls him over, and then he kicks Dan underneath the table and says, if you're lying to someone, shouldn't you add some truth in there first and not hanging on too thick? And it incenses Merrick, and Merrick follows him up the stairs and towers over Al. The actor for Merritt is like above 6.5 feet. Ian McShane is like short. And so the result is this strange thing. Maybe that's an explanation within the scene where it's like there's a reason that Al does not physically threaten Merrick.
Right.
He treats him like an equal to some respect. And it leads to this strange scene where, he's trying to talk to Merrick, and Merrick is like, I like my liquor. I like the smell of ink on my fingers. Please smell it. And Al's like, no. And it's just, there's also a great part where, EB has been talking to Blazanoff in Merrick's presence. Then EB comes back in to the room where Merrick is with Al, and then Dan comes back in, and then slowly over the course of the scene, Merrick shows no reaction to the EB saying, well, yeah, I was trying to get in with the Russian. And then Merrick eventually is like told to leave, and he lingers as if like he has more to say, and then Al just stares at him. And it's this sense of, oh, I'm a henchman now. And, oh, well, I guess I'm Al's henchman.
Yeah. I mean, just like the press is the tool of the people that are in charge.
That pay for their ads.
Yeah.
The end.
The end.
But it's just like, it's a little sad for Merrick because he seems much more independent-minded character, and
he tries to be.
His only flaw is he's susceptible to violent threats, but Al doesn't even use those on him.
No.
And
well, he's susceptible to violent threats, and like I was just saying, all of the underlings have in common is that they like being praised, and so does Merrick. I mean, I guess everybody does. Everybody likes being praised.
Yeah, the town of Deadwood is very lonely, in need of affection and validation.
Right. There's another great scene in there with Blazanoff near the end where Dan is talking to him about putting his feet to the fire, and like, would you still have the same answer about showing me the telegraph or whatever between Isringhausen and the Pinkertons, if put your fucking feet to the fire? And then he talks about Blazanoff talks about his history at home in Russia and how terrible it was, and he has no family; they're all dead. I'm
a person whose parents have been murdered.
Yeah,
and I believe in the confidentiality of communications.
I believe in the confidentiality of communications, and then Dan's just like, "What the fuck does that even mean?"
Yeah,
and then he's like, simply put, I would like to hope that when my feet would put to the fire, I would make the same decision. That's it.
Yeah, and I think this is like, other people have made this point, but I think it's like 2005, 2006 when the second season was made, and I think that's similar to the time when Edward Snowden was revealing like the NSA spying program. And so like, it's sort of a topical discussion of the confidentiality of communications, but it's also a very nice little moment by Blazanoff, and the idea that he cares so much about the idea that the messages that he's entrusted with are, but of course, he's not doing very good, because like everyone that he is friends with reports to Al.
Sure.
And
but the point is that he's doing what he thinks is right. Whether that's effective or not is another discussion, because it's not.
Yes.
it's not effective at all, because it's just out there. I mean, the telegraph station is right there. He can't be there at all times. Yeah. It's like,
there's also a great moment where Mrs. Isringhausen, E.B. Farnham, is charged with being friendly with the Russians, and he says, "I'm very fond of Russians." Which is just it just sounds so almost perverse. It's like, who is like? I mean, some people are excited, I guess, about Russia, but it's weird.
Well, it's just
that's a horrible thing to say. I'm sure there's some very nice Russian people.
It's just him not knowing what the fuck to say, and then he just says something that he thinks is positive, and it's just stupid. It just comes out dumb. Yeah. And in that same scene where he says like, "I love Russians," that's when Dan comes in with something.
Yeah.
And gives it to Al and
the newspaper.
Yeah, the newspaper. That's right. And then that's not very subtle cues given to EB to get the fuck out.
Yeah.
Because this doesn't concern you.
But that doesn't work. And Al says, EB is just leaving.
He's just leaving. And then he like basically does his best like song and dance like number, like, oh, and like tips his hat and like just shuffles his way out the door.
He's feeling bad because he had a toothache and he missed developments in the street. So he's trying to be like, put a positive spin on his dereliction of duty.
Yeah.
And, Al just makes a playful reference to killing him.
Right. Much like the fool, he's always trying to do a song and dance number and make everybody happy and not want to kill him.
Yeah. Let's talk about Miss Isringhausen, who has a scene where Al returning to the telegraph,
and lies about the telegraph thing.
Well, he says, he says in a very wonderful, playful way, I have intercepted your message to your shithill bosses. And he's like, if you do not wish to be killed, you will take the money and sign everything that Mr. Swearengen asked you to. And it's just, it's almost like Al's expressing his frustration with telegraphs, which he believes fuck up his entire operation.
Oh, sure. Totally.
And then he's also like, he's again.
His worst enemy is people being able to actually talk to each other and figure out what's going on.
And Pinkertons, which she has won.
Yes.
And it's just, again, she is remarkably astute, again, as always in interacting with him. And she's like, she doesn't miss a beat. And she's like, okay, well, you found me out and you're going to kill me. So can you pay me $5,000? And can somebody sign, it's just.
It's like, as long as the sheriff's here, he doesn't have to know what the fuck's going on, but he needs to like basically be the notary here. And then he needs to escort me the fuck out of town because I don't trust you.
And it's intertwined with Bullock's trampling in such a tense way where it's in, I don't know, I like Mrs. Isringhausen, and it's just a small beat and it's left open-ended. We don't know what's going on with her.
Yeah. I think one of the last things we should talk about, and something that is going to come to a head, obviously, is the horse situation. Hofstadler and Fields trying to do something with that horse. I can't remember what they were trying to do.
Oh, they're trying to castrate the horse.
They're trying to castrate the horse.
As they note, there's a kind of an old wives' tale which may have some truth to it, which is that you shouldn't castrate horses during a certain time of the moon's lunar cycle, because the gravity of the moon, much like the gravity of the tides, will move blood down and up in the testicles of the horse. And so that's why they refer to the moon as wrong, for them to nut the horse, as they say.
Well, obviously, they are the two black characters in this story.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, they were involved with this incident. And even though it is not their fault, there are people like Steve the Drunk and other forces in town that are not good. And obviously this is, this time period is definitely not good for two black men and this situation happening to them. So
I was just reading about Woody Guthrie's father was involved in a lynching in the Midwest where a family had accidentally killed someone, a black family, and that family was murdered by the entire inhabitants of the town, and there was no repercussion for it. And one of the songs that Woody Guthrie sang was about his father murdering this family. And it's just like a gruesome thing.
When the entire town shows up to do something, who's going to do anything to the entire town?
Yeah.
I mean, it's pretty fucked up.
The horse development comes out of nowhere, but it's full of implications for all these stories.
It's moving forward.
Yeah, and again, it speaks to the nature of the show that it's a little haphazard in terms of, like, all of a sudden there's this horse. Yeah. And also, you've often talked about the horse in the credits. Yeah. And it's like, the horse in the credits finally has something to do. It's killing people now. Though we don't know what's going to happen next. Really quickly, I would like to talk about a few things. Let's see. Bullock in the opening scene, he talks to his stepson, and his stepson, in addition to planting seeds with his mom, they also was going to go duck hunting and calling with Bullock. And Bullock mentions the town of Belforche Way, and I may be mishandling the name, but it's a town that the real life Bullock founded. The real life Bullock was obsessed with business ventures, and so he just made business ventures. I've just recently read this book. Spoiler alert for future episodes of anyways, we go to the actual town of Deadwood, which is festooned with copies of this book, which is very dry, but does have some interesting dry relations of Bullock's stories. And one of them is about Belforche, which is this town that this Bullock mentions offhand. And he set up the S&B, or the real Bullock set up the S&B ranch there, where Starr and Bullock had this ranch. And so they then, all their interactions with the railroad companies as elders of the town were trying to get the train to go through this obscure location in order to start. And they were successful, and they founded this town, Belforche, which I apologize if I am strangling the phrase. It's French. Joni and Jane refer to the brothel as formerly a cooperage, which I always and they were like the guy who made it a cooperage was too early by one season, and a cooperage I thought was a funeral parlor, and I thought the joke was that he was too early for all the deaths. But I think cooperage is also a barrel maker, so it's like it may not even be a joke at all. But anyway, I've always really been curious about the
Feels
exact.
like it might be a joke, I guess.
The exact definition of a cooperage and why they would be too early by a season. But
I think your original interpretation makes the most sense.
Yeah, hopefully. But I guess we've talked about everything, and thank you for watching another episode of this series.
Like, subscribe, share.
Buck-toothed beaver slapping logs. You can't keep the gold from me.